Alright, welcome to another one of our videos, and this one's arguably the most important video I've ever done, to be honest. And all I'm going to be talking about is vitamin D, but as you're going to see, this really covers quite a lot of things in people of all ages. So firstly, why is vitamin D important? So for a long time, the experts thought vitamin D was mainly responsible for the regulation of calcium and bone health and prevention of things like rickets, which is, as you can see here, sort of a bending of the bone. So, this is what we, for a long time, that they thought that it was mainly for. But over the last 20 years, maybe a bit longer, they found that vitamin D influences a lot more, and especially has a massive impact on our immune system and its ability to control and reduce inflammation. So, and if we're at a time in the world right now, if there was ever a thing that we wanted to look at in terms of building our immune system, it would be at this point in time across the entire world. So, so as you can see, this is why I regard as a very important video. So here's an important thing to get your head around, is that there's about 30,000 genes in your body, and vitamin D has been shown to influence over 2,000 of them. Now, I put this quote on top of this picture here because this is sort of a common thing of what we're doing, most people's jobs are like, and especially right now where we're indoors, out of sunlight, looking at computer screens. So sort of this is a classic way of becoming vitamin D deficient, which we're going to go into in a minute. So studies also show that low vitamin D level is associated with loss of muscle mass, which is obviously strength, but that may also mean weak bones, also problems with insulin, all that sort of stuff. So, which we've covered a lot about in previous videos, and that also is sort of linking itself to things like cancer and diabetes. As I've spoken about already, the lower cases of immunity, which we'll go into a bit more, but even high blood pressure and the development of neurological problems. So you can sort of see this one vitamin really covers quite a massive spectrum of different various health problems. So how common is it? Well, it's extremely common, unfortunately, which is ironic considering how important it is. So here's a chart that you can find these out. You can get all this stuff from the Hugh website. This is where I found this one from. But you know, even countries with large populations, I'm in Australia, like the percentage of the population with vitamin D deficiency is around about 31%, but there's some that are even more. It just depends on many factors, type of jobs, incomes, and the health systems. All those things are factors, but you can sort of see it's pretty much across the board. It's a very common thing. In winter is another big problem with vitamin D, because there's less sunlight. So, and even when there is sunlight, it's very cold and we're rugged up, so our skin doesn't see it. So that's where in Australia, like, we're known as a very warm country, and that's true, but down in the southern part of where I am in Melbourne, it's a lot colder than it is up in the northern states, and they found through the Australian Bureau of Statistics that those people living in Melbourne, about 49% were found to be vitamin D deficient in winter, compared to in summer where it's only 16 or 13%. That's quite a big, it's like 1 in 2 people. That's massive, and then and if you go back to what we said before, it's playing a huge role in preventing these things. You can sort of see it doesn't really take much to tip you over the edge. So I've sort of put a thing here, people, you have this thing about when you're cold, you're going to catch a cold, or if you're out in the wet and you get, like out in the rain, you get wet, and you don't get cold from being cold. You can get hypothermia, but that's a completely different thing again, and it takes extreme sort of thing for that to happen. We get a cold when our immune system is weak and vulnerable. So you can even get it from overtraining, from excessive endurance training, like marathons and stuff like that. That can deplete your immune system because there's no chance to repair. And then little virus and bacteria that where your immune system normally can fight it off, there's just too many, it overwhelms you, and then you get hit with an infection. So, and I put this quote here, which we've had on one of our other videos before, and it's also talking about nutrition. And again, there's a lot of people with eating just poor diets. They might not be overweight, but they're malnourished, and again, it's leaving the immune system vulnerable to attack and end up getting an infection. So Certain jobs more at risk than others. So again, if I'm using out my country, Australia, like the ABS, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, concluded we're also associated with type of jobs you do. So jobs that are mainly based inside, sales workers, office professionals, corporate sort of jobs, are like almost double the chance of having vitamin D deficiency as opposed to tradesmen like carpenters and plumbers and stuff who are guys who work outside. All right, so and at the moment, like in the world, we're currently, a lot of people are being forced to work in their own home, and that's great if they're getting outside during the day, but if they're not, then they're very more at risk and leaving themselves open to infection. So as I've said before, quite alarming considering how important it is. Some people think, okay, well, if I need more vitamin D, why not just pop a pill? Well, unfortunately, this vitamin doesn't quite work like that. Actually, all of them don't work like that, but especially this one, because we don't absorb vitamin D as efficiently across the board. So vitamin D levels can be really compromised due to age. So they found that as you age, your ability to make it, even if you are getting sunlight, is dramatically harder. It's almost about 75% it can be reduced by. Also, weight. Being overweight can have a problem with the way that that it gets trapped. The vitamin D gets trapped in your body fat. So they found there's about a 55% reduction in blood levels for those who are overweight. So these two factors sort of contribute to making it harder, meaning that you need to really, if you're older, you need to have a lot more things going in your favour. You need to be doing a lot more, eating even better. Certain foods you need to eat more of. You need to be trying to increase your strength and working on strength training. And same here, you really need to be eating better and doing all the exercises and that as well for a different reason. Sunlight is by far the best way of getting it. All right, it's not even really a true vitamin as you would think of in vitamin A, B, C, where we can gain those more easily from food. This one is really its best possible way of us getting it is through natural sunlight. And you can sort of see here's a little chart that I got from Precision Nutrition that sort of explains how it works, all the complicated process, how the liver processes it through the kidney, and then it circulates through your blood and your body extracts it and keeps you healthy. All right. Another really important part to note here is that you can't get an excessive amount. You can't intoxicate yourself from it because our body just destroys any excessive amount. Where a supplement back here, you can overdose on these. All right. So you can intoxicate, which we'll go into shortly. You can actually have too much. So what about trying to get your vitamin D through an office or car window? Well, unfortunately, that doesn't work too well because the glass blocks virtually all the UVB, preventing vitamin D from being made. So if you're thinking that you're getting it from sitting inside and through a window, you're not going to be getting it. You might be getting a little bit, but nowhere near enough. Sunscreen. Got to be wary of sunscreen. Sunscreen, obviously, we need it to prevent getting sunburnt and obviously getting melanomas. You don't want to get that either, but you must understand that if you never actually go outside without sunscreen, with sunscreen always on, then there's a chance that you will be vitamin D deficient even if you are in the sunlight, because you pretty much just blocked nearly 99% of it. So you may be solving a melanoma problem, but giving you a higher chance of getting an infection. So you could still get cancer anyway. So how much do you need? Well, you don't need a lot. You don't need to be out there for 2 hours or anything. They've found like 10 to 15 minutes a day, but you need to have at least 40% of your skin exposed as a general guide to get the recommended amount. And you can see how that's a bit of a problem in winter when we're all rugged up. We don't sort of go out in shorts and a t-shirt because it's way too cold. So the only part of your body that may be getting any sun is your face and the back of your hands, which is not 40% of your body. So you may need to be out for a bit longer, or go out a few times throughout the day to try and get the recommended amount. If you went for a bike ride, they found that you'd get about 100 times more. It doesn't necessarily have to be bike, could be run, could be just a walk even, but if you spent that much time, I've just put bike here because it's an example of exercise that people do outside. They found you get 100 times more vitamin D than the recommended daily amount, and usually because you're exercising, you won't be rugged up as if you would have when you're walking. So even on a cold day, like I've just gone for a run myself today, and it was freezing, but I was still in a shorts and a t-shirt because it just get too hot. So it's an easy way for you to get the vitamin D in a short amount of time without being freezing cold either, if it's in winter that you're doing it. And remember, any excess that you get from the sun, you won't overdose on it. Your body just gets rid of what it doesn't need. The last thing I didn't make note of is that darker skinned people may need to stay out significantly longer because their skin finds it harder to absorb vitamin D. So that's another factor you need to consider. What about foods? So there's some foods that have vitamin D, but there's not many, and it's a lot harder. It's just nowhere near as good as getting it from the sun, but there definitely are things that you can have that'll give you a pretty good boost. So fish, cod liver oil here, which is a huge one. You can get like a massive amount of vitamin D from cod liver oil. Mushrooms, liver, eggs, they're all good choices of boosting your vitamin D. So these, for example, would be good for a person, the older adult, who struggles to absorb it anyway. Sort of having a lot of these things in their diet will give them a better chance of absorbing it. Fatty fish though, salmon's a great choice. I'll eat salmon a few times a week. And that gives you a huge boost of the vitamin D. Now coming back to the supplements, as we mentioned before, they're basically a very poor form of trying to get it. That's why if you're relying on pills, you're really going to struggle. You shouldn't be relying on pills for any vitamin. You should be getting it from your food, in this case from being out in the sun. But like I said before, it's even worse because you can actually get an excessive amount from having this. So you can actually get a bit of a calcium build up in your arteries. So they found that taking magnesium in combination with it is really important because it helps the body activate the vitamin D better, and it metabolizes it much more easily than if you were just having the vitamin D on its own. So it helps the liver and the kidneys to function better, to break it down and absorb it like how it's meant to be used. But again, if you just went outside in the sun, there's no need for a pill anyway. So as I put here, if you eat right and you go outside, there's no need for a pill or tablet. And the best part is you can't intoxicate yourself on it. There's no chance of calcium build up from that. So what concerns me right at the moment, which brings me back to the point I made at the start, is why I've regarded probably this is one of my most important, or arguably the most important one, is right at the moment in this point in time, and here I am in Melbourne, they're about to go into severe lockdowns. We might not be able to go outside at all, not even to go shopping or anything. We're stuck indoors, meaning that we're having a lack of vitamin D, and a lot of people are eating poor diet right at the moment. It's under stress and all these sort of things, and it's a perfect combination. I put here, this is like a mathematical equation: staying indoors plus a poor diet. And if you're elderly, you sort of got like 3 hits to the system. All of these things will mean you've got you're vitamin D deficient, which means you've got a weak immune system to fight infections. And right at the moment, the whole reason we're in lockdown is because there's a virus. So I'm not saying at all that the vitamin D is going to make you immune to coronavirus. I'm not saying that at all. Forget even coronavirus, just think normal colds and just normal infections. This is why you get them more often in winter, because of the factors we've spoken about. So if you want a strong immune system to give yourself every chance of fighting things off, you really need to be doing the opposite of all these things, getting outdoors more often, eating a really good diet. You can't reverse the aging thing, but you can do things like exercising correctly for it and doing the right things around it to minimise the risk as such, because there's plenty of old people who don't have these problems. It's only certain ones. So it's not all old people, it's just the people who don't look after themselves well. So in summary, vitamin D influences over 2,000 genes in our body. It's best obtained from sunlight. You need at least 20 minutes per day with at least 40% of your skin exposed. You cannot obtain vitamin D through your car or house windows. Be careful of supplements. If you really want a supplement, I would go see someone who knows what they're talking about. Don't make it up yourself. See a doctor or a nutritionist, someone who understands this stuff, so they can help guide you on the right amount. Eat more fatty foods like fatty fish, eggs, mushrooms, liver. Cod liver oil is great if you can get your hands on that. If you're overweight, you really need to resolve that, and if you're older, then you really need to be doing all of these things better than before to try, because you'll find it more difficult to absorb. It becomes more and more important to you as you become older. So the main point of all of it is just to get outside. If you're getting outside, you're pretty much covering it. All right. If you want more help on nutrition or exercise, there's plenty of free reports. Just go to our website and you'll find stacks of information there, and you can help yourself get on track. All right. So I hope you enjoyed that video, and we'll see you on our next one.